Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, English teachers worldwide. I have the pleasure of being with you once again, Jason Levine, also known as Fluency MC, with the American TESOL Institute. Big up American TESOL Institute for making these webinars possible to meet and engage with teachers around the world. Tonight, because it's nighttime for me, I'm in Paris, France, we'll be talking about vocabulary and tips for teaching vocabulary. If you're here live, please, let's get busy in the chat. Let's interact. If you are here watching the recording afterwards, thank you. You can leave comments. Let's get those comments going too if you're watching asynchronously. Why can't my students remember vocabulary to use in activities on exams and in their lives? This question, and let's see in the chat if you agree, this question is one of the most common questions I hear as a teacher trainer. And we could say, grammar there also, or English. And Katerina's already getting to the next point. Not enough exposure and practice. I couldn't agree more. Hard work. Paola, I hear you. What type of hard work? Because don't you agree that certain hard work might be in the wrong direction for remembering vocabulary? But I certainly agree with you. It takes, and Katerina, it takes exposure, it takes hard work. Good. It takes hard work in a certain way. Because hard work could backfire. We're going to get into that for sure. But certainly this question, right? The idea that a teacher feels, wait a second, I have this great activity and this great target language, but my students come to class and they don't have that target language up here. Make it personal. They learn words in isolated forms. Ooh, we have a good audience here. Yes, I agree with you. Preaching to the choir, as we say. Have you ever heard this? Kids are like sponges when they learn a first language. Has anyone heard that before? And if you've heard that before, if you can relate to that, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? They play with the vocabulary. And it's not just about language, right? Just right? Soaking up their world around them, learning, certainly not just language. Good. Good. Any other comments about they grasp it really quickly? They hear it, they listen to it. Good. So do you agree they get exposure to large amounts of language? And not just large amounts. Repetitive input. Ooh, the context. Lots about context is coming with tips to learn vocabulary. Oh, Leticia, thank you. They're relaxed, curious, and engaged. They're not ashamed of making mistakes, and they do not analyze language. I hear some teachers sometimes, and parents, and students too, right? Adolescents and adults saying, well, yeah, that's kids, right? That's how it is when you're a child. But what I think, not just what I think, but from my experience is as you get older, it might not happen, especially not in your first language. It might not happen directly, but is it possible? I'm going to ask you, you people here live, is it possible for your students to get exposure to large amounts of repetitive input? I don't mean it's easy. I don't mean it's something that can happen for everybody so easily, but is it possible? we have a lot of teachers here who teach adolescents and adults. Is it possible for adolescents and adults to get exposure to large amounts of repetitive input? Is it possible for people who are not children in their first language? They are children, adolescents, and adults learning English as a foreign language, a second language. Is it possible they could be relaxed, curious, and engaged? Is it possible that they could not be so worried about errors? Is it possible that they could, or you could help them not think so much about the language? You know, is this a transitive, intransitive verb? Where does is it a preposition or a particle? Or I love what I'm seeing here. It's possible, but there are demands from school. Always, this is an issue, isn't it? You see your students for a short time, and there are many demands on your students to perform. Also, repetition can be boring. Wow, I agree with you very, very much on that point. It's not that repetition is not needed, right? It's that it cannot be boring. And a child, right, especially in a first language, it's just innate to just, let's hear the story again. Let's listen again and again and again. I love all of these comments. This is what I was hoping for tonight, everybody. And it's also about, oh, I need to learn now. It's a long process, Katerina says. They can be exposed outside the classroom. What happens outside the classroom? They could be exposed to English and not understand it and get discouraged. They could be exposed outside of the classroom and it could motivate them, energize them. Wow, that's such a huge difference, isn't it? Because we all know it could go either way. English is everywhere outside the classroom if you're looking for it. But does it motivate you as a learner, or does it demotivate you? Cartoons. Oh, without realizing you're learning, Paola. Learning when you're not looking. Let's keep going here. Here's my first tip, everybody, and I want you to tell me what it means to you. Tip number 1 for vocabulary. Consider which vocabulary to teach. English is a vast language in terms of vocabulary. Grammatically, right? You could argue that it's simpler than your language or this language. Okay, maybe. In terms of vocabulary, I think we know it's vast, it's growing. Frequency, relevancy, good. What should you think about? Because to wrap your head around all vocabulary is not the point. You might have a syllabus, a textbook, a syllabus, a curriculum. That's important. Frequency, relevancy. What other things are important? Do you think of it in the frame of grammar so much, or lexis, functionally, in terms of topic, situation? Depends on the target, certainly. Relevance. That's what I was waiting for, Sahar. I think if we combine the ideas of frequency, relevancy with motivation, it's motivating and engaging, then we got it. Their age, certainly. Oh, age, culture. Is it more about, Layla saying, fluency or accuracy? We probably will all agree that a balance is necessary, right? If you're super fluent with vocabulary in terms of you're getting it out in your writing or your speaking, but people don't follow you, they don't understand you. You've got issues with accuracy, your pronunciation of that vocabulary, the grammar that you need for that vocabulary. On the other hand, you could be very slow and deliberate and perfect with your accuracy, but you can't keep a conversation going. You can't write an email. Here's tip number 2. Don't prioritize definitions, lists, or lexical sets. Why do you think I said this for number 2? I do not mean that definitions are bad, that lists are bad, or lexical sets are bad. That's why I'm saying don't prioritize. And you may not agree with me. Boring. That's one issue. Any other issues with definitions, lists, and lexical sets? By the way, let me just say again, I certainly believe that definitions, we need them. We need lists and we need lexical sets, but don't prioritize them. Why not? Boring and what else? Not useful. It doesn't help us to use the vocabulary items. So you might try to learn them in a certain way, but then when you go to use them, your brain is not in that orientation. I agree. Definitions could be more difficult to understand than the word itself. Good. They don't get the words. And how often, if ever, will your student need to define a word? Is it the definition that's going to really be useful? What's going to be useful? Understanding the meaning of the word and how to use it. If that's in a good definition, great, right? If you can identify a word on a list, you say, okay, lexical sets. I know that it's not bad. We need more content. Lists are not useful. Words need context. Let's keep going. Well, here we go. What's this? Would this be more of a definition, a list, or a lexical set? This chat is amazing. Thank you so much for all of your comments. Let's keep it going. This is what I've done many presentations on this topic where it's just me talking. I love playing off what you're saying here, and more people are coming. This is just wonderful. Is this what this from the American State Department? I work as an English specialist with them. I certainly don't think this is bad. On the contrary, the difference between fun and funny for French speakers, and I live in France and teach French speakers, this is a really important one. So I don't think this is bad, but what might be limited about something like this? Definition can be useful. Definitions are useful. Absolutely. I'm not here to say that we should not use definitions, especially in the target language, right? So if it's understandable, defining the word, the expression in English, really great. But we don't usually explain words, right? We need to use them in context. So understanding them through a definition can help. But what's the problem maybe with this? What's the limitation? Something like this that people share on Facebook. I like it. I agree with it. I sometimes not for, but practice for fluency. Good. Contextualizing is fundamental. There's not a lot of context here, right? There's a tiny bit, but right, we're not seeing this in a story, in a song, right? And it's not meant to be like that. This is a meme that's shared on Facebook. So I'm certainly not criticizing it for what it is. It is what it is. Do you like this? No. But this is IELTS dictionary. Now, if you clicked on one of these words, yes, sure. So if you click on one of these words, if you click on one of these words and you get like some wonderful contextual examples, fine, but that's not what this is. This is just a list. What's the problem with the list? What's missing here? And I know you're going to repeat some of these same ideas, but let's keep repeating them because sometimes students ask me what dictionaries are so important, because some dictionaries look like this and some dictionaries have wonderful examples, contextual content that you can go out and build out from, especially on the internet, right? Compared to how it used to be with paper dictionaries. So which dictionary, and we can get into that at the end if you want to ask, or if anybody wants to give opinions about dictionaries. The meanings are lost. No context, no context. Good. No definitions. I mean, no color. It looks boring. Good. So it's also, so it might be true, right, that these words are high frequency on the IELTS, but are they going to feel like, oh, I'm going to bring these words into my head and use them for this test? Topic, yeah. Look, I'm not against lists, but if the context isn't there and if the chunking, the collocation, sorry, spoiler alert, that's coming. Nobody has mentioned that. And it might be because you're taking for granted nowadays that words in isolation, somebody mentioned it earlier. Now, if you click on the word, right, if you click on appointment and you get make an appointment, cancel an appointment, right, late for an appointment, then that would be great. Unfortunately, this is only a list. Lists do not have a soul for me. Ooh, where's the soul? What's this? I mentioned what this was earlier. It could be a list of, things you find in the kitchen. It could be, days of the week, months of the year. What do we call that? It's a visual, but what we said earlier, we were talking about, should we rewind back? Let's see if anybody can tell me what it is. It's a very informal presentation of this idea. It's for young learners, obviously. Now, if your feeling is a lexical set makes a lot more sense than just a list or a bunch of definitions, I agree with you. But are there limitations to a lexical set? Could your learner look at a picture like this, study it, and have the vocabulary ready to use? Yes or no? Veronica says no. Why not? Too much at once. Good. Where are the structures? Veronica says. They need structures. Usage. It's still a list. What about if we did this? Not in context yet. We're getting to context, but do you raise your eyebrow? Clear your throat? Throat's not on there. I have a stomach ache. Chunks, here we go. Yeah, I have. That's useful. That's chunking, that's collocation. Again, spoiler alert. That's where we're going. With my bring the structures in, bring the collocations in, the chunks, dual coding. Exactly. Wow, you guys are fantastic. Here we go. Teach vocabulary in context. Now, what does that mean? We throw that word around a lot, context. So I'm going to push you guys here. What does that mean to you? Who would disagree with that? Nobody. But what does it mean to you? And what do you do as teachers to teach vocabulary in context? Katharina says a sentence, a phrase, a story with vocabulary items. Story, good, reading, real situations. It's fundamental for meaning. How can you know the meaning of any of those things we saw on those lists without seeing it at least in a phrase? That's why we brought the collocations in a sentence, or better yet, the phrase and the sentence in the context of a story, somewhere where it's in discourse, oral discourse, written discourse. So I'm going to go back to something. This question that I get so often, and many of you agreed with it. Why can't my students remember vocabulary to use in activities, on exams, and in their lives? Well, is it enough to teach vocabulary in context? Would you say that teachers who are focusing too much on lists, lexical sets, definitions, this is why students can't remember and be prepared to use vocabulary? Teach it in context, you're done. Oh, if it's not used in their lives, they need to, look at, everybody's coming and chiming in here. They need to transfer it to different situations. Okay, it's not enough just to get it in context to remember and use. They need to use it in their lives. They should reproduce it. And the way the teacher conveys the meaning of the words, very interesting. By the way, I have 7 tips, if you're wondering where we're going with this. Veronica, the repetition. Hold on to that thought. I have a song here I wrote. If you know me, you know that one of the things I do, the main thing I do, is I make songs where I put vocabulary in context, in chunks. What's the vocabulary focus here? And if you like, you can also tell me what age group and level are we talking about here? Get, Katharina says, good. So get is a delexicalized verb. Get by itself is not something a definition is going to help us with. We don't learn the meaning of get through a definition. We learn it through the chunks. Good. So you get to know someone. You get to junior high, like you arrive at, get in fights, get high. Are we talking about, get high. Are we talking about young learners or high school adults? And what level of English here do you think? I don't mean, is it A2, B1, but what do you think? High school adults, B1, good. But do you agree that this approach in context, whether it's a song, a poem, a video, a story, that's the point, right? Songs are miming. Maysoon, I couldn't agree more. That's why I've decided after 22 years of teaching to focus most on songs, games, and video clips. I got to know this kid when I got to junior high. He used to get into trouble, get in fights, and get high. But when he got a little older, he got more mature. His mom got him in line so his vision wouldn't blur. She got on his case to get straight and get a job so they could get by without having to rob. Tip 4. Wait. We already talked about this because it's impossible to talk about anything with vocabulary teaching and learning without talking about chunking. And we're lucky to be teaching at a time where this is taken for granted by most people. I remember a time when it wasn't. I observed teachers, teaching verbs like listen, see, go, say, and they weren't teaching the complements. And later, students so frustrated trying to listen to music or listen to music. Why should you have to think which is it if you teach listen to music? Songs for kids, sure, and adults. It depends on the type of song, and it doesn't have to be sung. I mean, this is not why we're here tonight. I have other webinars you can check out with American TESOL Institute, and I'll do more where I'm talking more specifically about games, about songs. We're going to get to games tonight too. But whether it's in a song, a story, it could be something you write, it could be something in a textbook or something from a magazine. Where are the chunks? Those words that go with other words. Because a word in isolation means if that's going to be a definition the student learns, and then they struggle to know what goes together, whether it's a preposition, a very common noun, an adjective, that's not only will help them reuse it, but it's about encoding it in their memory. It's so much more difficult to remember if it's not chunked. I love what's going on in the chat. Collocation or a chunk. It's a high frequency word combination, a chunk of language. Tell me, guys, do homework or make homework. Let's go. And then honestly, how do you know that? Please, if you tell me your answer, don't tell me at that moment you consciously remembered a rule. I'm not saying there isn't a tendency for do to be more of an action idea and make to be more creating. But don't tell me, because it won't be true, that in that second that you're answering, you are going to that idea to help you decide. I think if you say it's do homework, it's because it sounds good. It sounds right. This is what you hear, what you see. It's about your exposure. Yes, it's do homework. You learn it as a chunk. Very good. How about, correct, this one? I don't think logic helps with this. Wonderful. It's make an effort. What's so simple and yet complicated at the same time about collocations is that it's about what we hear and see with high frequency. That's the simple part. The difficult part is when we make it difficult. Native speakers of English like myself absolutely do not ever learn a distinction between make and do. So if you're trying to tell your students, okay, do is more this, make is like that, that can be a guiding principle. They are not first language learners, okay. But if it becomes something where they're under the microscope every time trying to decide what is the rule, it's not going to work. And a list, do you agree? A list with chunks is better than just a list. But a list with chunks is still a list. And we can't take a list and upload it to our brain and go out and use the expressions fluently, high accuracy and fluency. It helps. I agree. Lists are, if you have chunks in a list, what can you do? You could take the chunks and use them in a story, in a dialogue. No? I mean, I made these because that's the point, right? You can take them and use them. And if you use them in something and you repeat it enough, then the practice, there you go, Sahar, right? Then, and context, right? You put it into, you contextualize it into a dialogue, whether you're the teacher doing it or the student, a story, a song. That's right, that's good. But do you agree? You cannot just take the list and upload it, right? We need to put it in context, and we have to have enough exposure. And if a student sees something like this on the internet and thinks, oh, I'm supposed to just put this in my head and go and speak English, they're going to feel discouraged, right? That can be a problem. I've seen this happen. Oh, that's why I'm not fluent. Like, I'm supposed to be able to, understand these expressions and then go out and use them. So I made this song. My songs are also stories. I make sure to do my homework. Then I hit the sack, in idiom for go to sleep. I make a to-do list, stay on track. Some idioms here. Hit the sack, stay on track. I need to do a few errands. I'll be right back. Make yourself at home. Be my guest. Make a snack. What about short sentences, Veronica says? Do you think they can help? I love short sentences. Short sentences, like here, actually, where students, this is more middle school, high school. But short sentences that are easy to remember, yeah, and that can be also extended, where students can build on them. So I need to do a few errands. Okay, what do you need to do? I need to do the laundry. I need to go to the post. Oh, laundry is chores. Let me rewind that. I need to do a few errands. I need to go out. I need to go to the post office. I need to go to the bank. Oh, I need to do some chores. That's also in this song. Well, what chores do you need to do? I need to do laundry. I need to make the bed. I swim in the swimming pool. I love it, Veronica. Let's do it. Freestyle. I swim in the swimming pool. I walk on the street. I sleep in my bed. I sit at the table and I eat. I get up and go out. I make a call. I meet my friends. Tip 5. Teach vocabulary in a meaningful and engaging way. Now, who would ever disagree with that? But is it as simple? Is it as simple as that? We might agree with that. What could be a problem with this? I love that, Misun. I make my room untidy and I have to tidy it. I love the binomials, like the contrast. I make my room untidy and I have to tidy it. I made a mess, I have to clean it up. How to do it. Yeah, nobody's going to disagree with this. If you disagree with this in 2021, where English is so critical as a communication tool, not just a subject to study and show what it, what is meaningful for one person may not be meaningful or another. Very well said, Katerina. What engages me might not engage my students. So it could be a difference in what your students feel is meaningful and engaging, or what you as a teacher might think is meaningful and engaging, but may not be for your students. Finding meaningful, engaging method to teach vocabulary is not easy. And here comes Veronica with a way to deal with it. Students can generate their own examples. So certainly there are things that might be complicated, but there also might be ways we can fix this situation. Getting students to generate their own examples, feedback from students. Nobody has said this, but I'm sure some people will agree. It could also be you have a kind of fixed syllabus curriculum. You have to use this textbook. People are inspecting you in your country, the ministry. There's certain things you're supposed to do and follow. And you feel, and your students feel, it's not so meaningful or engaging. This is changing slowly, I know, in most countries, but it is changing as English becomes more of a practical skill. Word cards, flashcards, using games. After activities, share their feelings. They didn't like it. It was difficult. They love it. Yeah, feedback, good. What we learn with pleasure, we never forget. What do you think? One of my favorite quotes. If it's the experience with you, you're a teacher and your student has this great experience. And we know as teachers, we can remember teachers, right? In the past, we remember experiences, things we've learned because it was interesting, fun, pleasurable. But is that always true for vocabulary? If you enjoy the activity, it's in context, it's meaningful. Are you always going to remember the vocabulary? I mean, I have memories of French class where I liked the teacher, I enjoyed what I was doing. But you know, today, living in France, I'm pretty sure I don't have that phrase, that prepositional phrase, that very useful functional expression. It was in a book, it was with my teacher who I liked, but I don't remember it. Why not? It's not just pleasure. For the experience, yes, but not always for that chunk. Why not? Oh, sometimes when we learn with pain, we remember better. That's very interesting. I agree with that. This brings me to tip number 6. This sounds very aggressive, so let me temper it a bit. Please don't assume that by following tips 1 through 5, your students will remember vocabulary and be prepared and motivated to use it. They might love you, they might love their class, but if they're with you for 2 hours or 3 hours a week and they love it, is that enough? What's missing? Let's go back to those 5 tips. You consider which vocabulary to teach. You don't focus too much on definitions and lists or lexical sets. They're good, but you don't. Okay? You teach vocabulary and context. You're chunking it. You're not separating and isolating the words, right? You've got them together. You're doing it in a meaningful and engaging way, as much as you can. And your students agree, they like it. And that's why they feel pleasure. But still, something's missing. And Lara said it twice, repetition. Here's the thing, guys. And if you follow me and you know what I do, especially with American TESOL Institute, you know we're going to arrive at some point here. Studying, practicing, and using English. So if it's studying, that's more the definitions to me. That's the lexical sets. That's the, I need to understand the meaning. And that's good. So it's not about don't do this, do this. It's the balance. Ooh, if you don't use it, you lose it. Love it. What does using it mean? That is super key, because many people would say, well, practicing English and using English is the same thing. But would you say practicing the trumpet is the same as performing the trumpet in a concert? Would you say that practicing English at home with a game, with a song, is the same as using English in an activity with your classmates, presenting, doing something in front of the class? It's performance, isn't it? Practice and use is not the same thing at all. And I feel with vocabulary learning, so often students are trying to study the vocabulary and then use it, or teachers are trying to teach the vocabulary through definitions, through lexical sets, through decontextualized situations, or even contextualized. Great story, great song, but what? The student understands, they think they'll remember and go use. What do you think? I'm looking at the comments now. Practicing is putting your knowledge into practice. Maybe they don't feel the necessity of using it. They don't need to use it tomorrow. They're not going to a supermarket where they need to speak English. They're not traveling to a country where they need to speak English. That's huge. Using it when you're already confident. I love that. When it's like, when are you ready to play tennis competitively? Isn't it after you've practiced it? When are you ready to, perform a dance in front of an audience? It's when you're confident, when you've done enough practice. Where is, receptive and productive? Exactly. So what's this? Reported speech, say and tell. Studying, practicing, or using? Hello, if you're joining us now. Is this studying, practicing, or using? This one. I agree. It's more like studying. How about this? It's a list. Now we have collocations, but if you're just looking at this and trying to remember, is that really practicing, or are we still studying? We've got some nice chunks, but like somebody said earlier, it's still a list. How about if it's in a song? I have a song, say a lot, say a little, say nothing at all. You listen to the song, you repeat the song. Is that studying? I think it's more practice, isn't it? And then if you go out and you talk to someone, hey, my friend told me that, she said something interesting. She told a few people that that's using. That's because of the practice. You're probably familiar with this. Bloom's taxonomy. This is a very basic idea of Bloom's taxonomy. That's all we need for the purposes of this discussion. What's the problem? I'm just going to put that out there. Everything we're talking about with vocabulary, what do you think I'm saying here with this? And what do you think some teachers, some textbooks, some schools, some ministries might be thinking? What? What do we want our students to do? This is 2021. This is a global economy. What's important? What's the goal? Apply their knowledge. Absolutely. Of course, we want our students to think critically, to use English. They're intelligent in their first language, so let's get their English up, right? So they can apply, analyze, evaluate, create. Critical thinking. We all agree. So what's the issue? Is it possible to apply, analyze, and evaluate if you don't have a foundation of vocabulary. You just understand the meanings of the words. You can answer questions about definitions on a test. Is that going to mean you can apply, analyze? Can you build on that? Something is missing here. And Bloom in the 1950s, see, remember which word here? It's been mentioned a few times today. When we're talking about repetition, I hope we agree. We're not talking about going back to the old idea of rote learning and just repeating things out of context. Lists, repetition. No, but we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should not say, oh, well, because repeating things was boring and it was not in context, we don't need to repeat. Of course we need to repeat. How can we possibly remember vocabulary without repeating? Take a look at this.
Man, I was about to ask you the same question.
What's that?
I don't know, but it sure is fast.
It's the letter D.
The what?
The letter D.
Oh.
Like to hear a story about the letter D, boys?
Do we have any choice?
No.
Late last week, a real old dog went out digging in a terrible fog, found some dice on a hollow log, and won a duck from a friendly frog. He walked along till he spotted a door, dropped his duck down on the floor, found a dime and bought a dinosaur. Dinosaur?
So that's the letter D.
Boy, it sure is fast.
Do you know what else we learned, boys?
No.
If you dig a dinosaur, drop your duck for a dime.
What a beautiful film. Wasn't that a great film? I'd love to see that film just one more time. Could you roll that D film one more time, maybe? I'd love to see
What's happening, man?
I was about to ask you the same question.
What's that?
I don't know, but it sure is fast.
It's the letter D.
The what?
The letter D.
Oh.
Like to hear a story about the letter D, boys?
Do we have any choice?
No.
Now, this clip is from the first episode, the pilot of Sesame Street. I'm not going to play it again, but you know what they did? They played it 3 times. After we saw it once, and you saw Ernie, he said, let's watch that again. Let's check it out again. They play it again. You know what happens after that? Let's just fast forward.
Roll that D film one more time. I'd just love to
What's
see that D
happening,
film.
man?
I was about to ask you the same question.
What's that?
I don't know, but it sure is fast.
It's the letter D.
Again, and then again, 4 times. 4 times they did that. Why? Why 4 times? Kids like repetition, confidence. No, they like it, but why do they like it? There's something, play it again, do it again. Why? I agree with you. It doesn't just have, our brain needs it. Exactly. It's like learning to fly. If you're a bird, you don't think about it. You just, right? You need to keep repeating. Whether it's 10 times, 7 times, 14 times, 18 times, you see this all the time, don't you? It's true. Kids, right? We said from the beginning, right? If it's in the first language, naturally they're getting enough exposure. Yes, how we learn L1. What can we do for our L2 learners to get them more exposure? Let's learn a base to support higher thought and hold on to all of the things that we're taught Where is that base? The base. That's when you can move up. Tip number 7, final tip. People have mentioned practice, repetition. But it's not enough, is it? To just say, hey, go out and repeat. No. How should students practice in class and out of class? And especially, can you demonstrate in the classroom ways to repeat, okay? To repeat, to remember, to practice that will inspire your students to do it out of class because you don't have time. If you're lucky, you have students are getting 4 hours of English a week. Super lucky, 5. Most countries, 3. That time is not a time for practice. That's a time for communication where they can use what they've got in their heads from the practice. Speaking games, great. If you can do a game and then out of class, they get hooked. For example, annoying orange. Do you know annoying orange? Ooh, vocabulary worksheets. By the way, if anybody wants to connect here and share links, share the links. Let's go. I had an experience once, everybody, where I was with students and I said to my students, this is back to inspiring them to practice, where I didn't plan this, but I said to my students, hey, my son, because at the time my son was 5 years old or 6, he showed me this funny YouTube video called Annoying Orange. I want to show it to you. Again, I didn't think I want to do this so my students will practice and repeat, repeat and practice English. But I learned something from this. I played them a little bit. I'm going to play you just like I did with my students.
Hey, Apple. Apple. Hey. Hey, Apple. Hey. Apple. Hey, Apple. Hey, Apple. Apple. Hey. Hey, Apple.
What is it?
Orange, you glad I didn't say apple again?
Yeah, that joke was funny the first 400 times you said it.
Hey, Apple.
What?
You look fruity.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Hey, Apple.
What?
Can you do 10 push-ups in 10 seconds?
What kind of question is that? I don't even have arms. How am I going to do 1 push-up?
Hey.
What?
Hey, Apple.
What?
Can you do this? No. Try it.
No, stop it.
Now, I don't remember where I stopped this, but it was at the end of my class. And my students were like, wait, what's that? What? Can I have the link? Where do I watch that? And I said, oh, okay, yeah, here's the link. I wasn't really thinking about it. And you know what happened? My students started watching it. They watched this, they watched the next one with subtitles. I don't have the subtitles here. And what happened? How does that connect to this idea? Not telling them to practice. Don't go, go out and watch this, read this. Listen, no. I showed them something. And as a result, they did what? What happened? They got very excited. What did they do after school? Yeah, they practiced. They watched it again. Why? Because I have to learn English? Because my teacher told me to do this? It's fun. So they didn't think, oh, this is homework. And paradoxically, what? What happened? All that vocabulary, and there's more of Annoying Orange. And you could say, well, it's not the best English. Fine. You know what? It's very conversational English, and there are many episodes. They got hooked. They heard it again and again. Exactly. They got hooked on it. Hey, teacher. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't compulsory. Good, Leticia. What about games? Do you know this website? I'm just going to put it in the chat. We don't have much time. I was going to do a demonstration. I need to do another webinar with you guys with American TESOL about games for repetition, right? So this is, I'm just going to show you because it's a free site. I don't work with them. So I'm not sharing this with you because I'm working with them. But I really love this site. I think I may have just sent that to one person, not to everybody. Okay, let me try that again. Yeah, this site, if you like games and teaching, oh my goodness, this is absolutely the best one I've found. So we'll say it also, we have recently done with American TESOL a webinar, well, a quiz show for English language. The English language teachers quiz show, it's coming back. And we used this platform. It's fantastic. But the repetition through games, the repetition, if you can show them these games, they can link to the games after class. That's the point. How much time do you have in the classroom to do games? If you say, oh, I don't have enough time, I agree. And if you say, well, I want my time to be students working on these projects, and exactly, but they need to have all of that language ready. And that's if you can hook them on the game, right? Back to this. If you can demonstrate it through the game, through the song, through something that they can do after, and they're inspired, then you got it. So don't tell students to practice out of class. Help them get hooked on it. It's not easy. I'm not suggesting it's easy. I'm not saying it's so simple, but I'm sure some of you have stories of students who just get inspired and start getting into a game. Get Quizlet's good also. Absolutely, Leila. Get into a game, a series, YouTube videos, chatting with people, not because you push them to do it, but because they, with your help, friend, something happened where they got hooked on it. Do you agree with this? In terms of learning vocabulary, take a look, tell me what you think. This is one of my favorite ways of thinking about what we're talking about tonight. And you can think about it with tennis, cooking, driving, painting, dancing, any skill. In fact, with other skills besides language, it's kind of like, well, no kidding, a no-brainer. Of course you have to repeat to get better. And when you get better, you feel better. But with English, unfortunately, many of us as teachers and many more learners are thinking it's about just studying it and then being fluent. Scaffolding, beautiful, yes. Practice makes what? Give me the collocation. But you know what? I don't always like practice makes perfect. Why not? Somebody tell me, what could be negative about practice makes perfect? Why do you think I don't like that expression so much when it comes to language? What is perfect? Are native speakers perfect? Can we ever be perfect at language or the violin or drawing something? Lots of comments here. Good, keep them coming. The pressure, the stress of being perfect could interfere with your performance. It could make you anxious. We're learning all the time. We learn from our mistakes. That is the most important probably, right? If somebody thinks practice makes perfect means if I practice, then I'm perfect. But the mistakes are part of the practice. If you understand practice means mistakes and you're moving towards perfection, it's great. But I like this one. What do you think? Can we get this going? Can we make this more of a meme? Yeah. Beautiful. Wonderful. We need to stop here, guys. But before we stop, I will give you time. If you want to turn your microphones on, let me make sure everybody can do that. And take a few minutes if you like. If you want to say something, you could also ask. Your comment was ignored. Oh my goodness. Make your comment again, Ms. Raza. This is, I was going kind of quickly looking at the time. So now you can put your comment again in the chat. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Is that
Hello from Poland.
Hello, hello. If you're just saying hello, that's great. If you have a question, that's good too. You can also put it in the chat.
Jason?
Yes,
I
please.
would like to say thank you.
Hello, Leila.
Thank you for this interactive and fun webinar. Actually, I love the way you explained things.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hello.
hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Andres. Hello, Poland.
Hello.
Hello, boys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Thank you very much for your tips. It's very, very good. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm happy if you like them. Lara asked in the chat. I've been giving talks with American TESOL Institute once a month on a different topic. Once a month, doing a rhyme and rhythm workout with a school, and once a month a featured teachers. So we have 3 webinars a month. However, the quiz show, the games I showed you, we did a thing with teachers. It was so great and many people shared it. So next month, I think I'll do one talk on a topic like vocabulary, like tonight, one talk that is a featured teacher. We have a great, great teacher, Kangaroo English. I don't know if you, I'm just going to put it in the chat. He's amazing, Christian. Kangaroo English. He's coming up. Definitely join the featured teachers group on Facebook if you're not on there already, because we have, you will see a picture of Christian and Kangaroo English there. If you don't use Facebook, don't worry. You can also follow American TESOL Institute on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you don't use social media, it's a little more complicated, but I'll give you my my email. I will send you information, fluencymc@gmail.com. So if you prefer not to use social media and you want to keep in touch and know when the next webinars are, we will also, I'm making a recording now. As always, I'll edit the recording and we'll share it, so you can see it later and colleagues who could not be here can see it. Any other questions or comments, guys?
Jason,
Hello,
I would
Isabel.
like to, hello. I arrived a little bit late and I couldn't see what tip number 1 was.
But don't worry, we're going to make a recording. You'll have to wait.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
recording, and the recording will be, I mean, if you come here live, it's really great for me and for you live to have that experience. But of course, for people watching, we're going to kind of cut some things, you know, make it a little shorter. And it will be something that will be easier for everyone to follow.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
You're very
It was
welcome.
very
Katarina's there with the, there you go. You don't have to wait, Isabel, for the recording. Katarina's telling you the number 1.
Oh. Thank you,
Okay.
Katerina.
Veronica has to go. I have to go too. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate your support. American TESOL Institute, enormous thanks for making these webinars possible. And yeah, see you next time, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day,
Bye-bye.
great afternoon,
Bye-bye.
evening, wherever you are.
Thank you. It has been very
If you want to turn
interesting.
your camera on to say goodbye, just for a moment, camera's on, no?
Yeah.
We've got power.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's Laura.
It has been really
Katarina.
interesting.
Whoa. Let's go. Camera's on just to say goodbye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, bye.
Put the
Thank
cameras
you,
on
Jason.
Sahar.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Hey, there's Basma. Okay. Have a good evening, everybody. Take care.
Thank
Salute.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.